Outside the top 3 teams that have clearly separated themselves away from the rest of the pack, there is a large group of sides that are battling amongst each other and jostling for position in their attempts to make the automatic playoff spots at the end of the season. Yet unlike teams like Hangzhou, London and Seoul, as well as many others, there's one side that I believe in many ways has kind of slipped under the radar of a lot of people and could announce itself prominently in the coming stages, and this team is the Philadelphia Fusion. Their performance during Stage 2 largely went unnoticed, but on the face of it, it looked mediocre at best, as the team finished with a 3-4 record and a map differential of -3, but left them 11th in the Stage 2 rankings, as they never really looked like making the stage playoffs. However, when taking a closer look at their schedule, this sort of record seems to become more reasonable, with their 4 losses coming to New York twice, the Spitfire, and lastly the Shock, all teams that went on to qualify for the stage playoffs. But on the flip side, their 3 wins were against very weak opponents in Florida, Houston and Toronto, at a time when the Defiant was severely struggling following the departure of Stellar 937's introduction into their lineup. But since the end of Stage 1, and especially at the beginning of Stage 2, a lot of criticism was directed at the Fusion for the quality of their performances they were putting on display. This was a side that looked tailor-made for a GOAT's 3-3 style meta at the beginning of the season. Yet in reality, it found itself struggling in a number of areas, such as Sado's terrible Rhyme performances, along with the underwhelming outings of their inaugural season stars, Carpe, EKO and Boombox. Philly's level of play looked to be declining at the end of Stage 1, with stuttering series against the at the time winless Valiant and collapsing Eternal, and came to a head with back-to-back convincing 4-0 defeats to the San Francisco Shock in the playoffs, and then to the Excelsior to open up Stage 2, which then continued into their following lackluster victories against the Mayhem and Defiant. Yet the first thing I want to bring up is how Philadelphia have still managed to pick up so many victories despite this poor run of form. Whilst many of them were ugly and uncomfortable, the Fusion still managed to best all of the opponents they've faced, aside from against 2 of the best 3 sides in the league at the time, in matches they were expected to lose. The most dangerous teams are those who are able to pick up results even when they aren't playing at their best, and Philadelphia seemed to perfectly embody this, with them managing to claw out needed victories over this period. In fact, upon reviewing their progress over the past couple of stages, their only legitimate losses have been at the hands of the top teams. Now of course some will point to the second week of Stage 1, where they lost twice, to Dallas and then shockingly to Florida. But it's fundamental to remember that Boombox was sidelined that week with illness, leading to Elk being brought in at the last minute to play out of position. This killed their early momentum they'd gathered in week 1, with Boombox having been their best player at the time, and it's completely understandable that the team would have lost its shape, with a new player coming in with no scrim practice and playing a role he was not accustomed to. I personally believe quite strongly that had Boombox not been missing and gone down with this illness, that Philly would have ended up winning both of these matches and consequently would have finished the stage with an undefeated 7-0 record. Returning to Stage 2, I feel beginning with the game against London, that Philly started to really show a turnaround in their performance, rekindling the early season strength and potential in a nail-biting back-and-forth series that went right down to the wire. In fact, had Fury not come up with an incredibly clutch 4K Diva Bomb in the final teamfight as time ran out on London's attack, it could have easily been the Fusion who picked up the narrow 2-1 victory. Since that super close series, they've finally begun to find their feet and quality on GOATs again, putting up a far improved and spirited performance against New York, picking up a map in the process, before demolishing the Outlaws 4-0 in one of their best performances to date, and lastly giving the Shock one of their toughest tests of the regular season to close out the stage, despite still ending up losing 4-0. Putting Sado, who to his credit put in some decent Winston displays aside, Boombox was really getting back into his groove, and also Carpe on Zen and Zarya respectively towards the end of the half stage, which was the same formula which they found their earliest success on. I'd also mention Poco, who despite the weaker showings from his teammates, has been the consistent pillar for the side that's really held the team together, and he's a player whose own performances, like the Fusion's, has gone largely unnoticed. At this mid-season break, the team finds itself with an 8-6 record and a +2 map differential, placing them in a very solid 7th in the overall league standings right now. And it's this situation they find themselves in, as well as their recent and progressive improvement in the face of adversity, that I think should put the whole league on notice. Stage 1 week 2 aside, they haven't lost to a side that sits outside the top 4 in the league standings right now, and a good argument can be made their schedule only gets easier from this point onwards. Stage 3 sees them face a lot of sides in a tightly contested middle pack, and if they can pick up results here, it will show how deadly of an opponent they can be to the sides above them. Stage 4 on the other hand, aside from Vancouver and Seoul, sees them go up against a lot of sides near the bottom end of the standings that could see them pick up a lot of momentum and wins towards securing an automatic playoff berth at the end of the season. The scary thing is that this team showed last year that as long as it can pick up the necessary wins, it will always be a danger come the most important matches at the end of the season. Remembering of course that they were the inaugural season finalists after beating New York in the semis. And even scarier is the fact that with the depth and talent available to this roster, they should be able to adapt if there were any major shifts in the meta, unlike some other teams. In fact, if they can sort out their issues with Sado, either through incredible coaching or bringing in an upgrade, whether that be Fraggy or someone else, as well as continuing their gradual development over the next couple of stages, I don't think it'd be a stretch at all to see this team alongside someone like the Gladiators in being potential dark horses to go on one better than last year and even win the whole Overwatch League second season. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed. As I said yesterday, please comment below your thoughts and any video ideas you want me to do. Otherwise, please like and subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.